This video is going to show you how to create a burger in Photoshop using layers. So when you open up Photoshop, you're going to go up to New File, and we want to select a custom dimension for our project. So we're going to switch it from whatever it's set to. It might be in pixels, centimeters, millimeters. We're going to switch it to inches, and we want to make our width 8.5 inches and our height 11 inches. Press create. And it loads up a piece of printer paper onto our document. So this is what we're going to build our burger on. So if we're thinking of layers, we want to build our burger from the bottom layer up. So we're going to start with the bottom bun. So on your tool panel, you want to find the tool that can draw a really nice circle. So right now it's not visible, but if we click and hold on this rectangle tool, we will find our ellipse tool, and this will allow us to draw a really nice circle. So just draw any size circle on your page, it doesn't really matter. But over on the right hand side, we're going to change the dimensions. Now, here's the thing, if this link is in a dark box, that means it's going to change the width and the height at the same time, and we don't really want that. So let's click this to turn it off, and let's change the width to 6 inches. So you have to put a 6, hit the space bar, and then press IN. And we want to change the height to 6 inches as well. Press enter on your keyboard, and there we have a 6 inch by 6 inch circle. I can grab my move tool and move it to the center of my page, and you'll know you're in the middle of your page when you see the pink intersecting lines. Okay, now again on the right hand side, there's a few other things that we can change, such as the fill. Now this is the color that the circle is filled with. If we click on the fill, we have some options of things we can do. If I were to click here, I can choose a custom color, and it's going to make it one solid color. But if I want it to look as realistic as possible, I want to click on the fill and then click on this button here. This is the gradient. So what this does is it fades your circle from one color to another. So right now it fades from black to white in a linear motion, which means it's in a straight line. So it goes from the bottom straight to the top, fading from one color to another. What we want to do is change that from linear to radial. And now we want to modify these colors. So if we click on this color bar, this is showing us that our gradient changes from black to white. If we click on that one time, we have a place where we can change the colors of our gradient. So if we double click on this black square at the bottom, we can choose a custom color here. So let's choose a light brown for this section. And then the white square, we're going to choose a dark brown. Press OK if you're happy with how it looks. You can move this little screen over. Okay. Now one thing that we want to do is, if this is the bottom bun and we're looking at it from a bird's eye view, it wouldn't really look like this. It would probably have a dark outline simulating crust. So over here where your gradient is, you can move your lighter color towards your darker color, and you can see that it's pushing the lighter color towards the edges. And right about there looks pretty good to me. It now looks like this is fresh bread and the dark outline simulating the crust. Okay. Our next thing that we want to do is add a condiment, any condiment that you want. Now, the thing about Photoshop is every time that you use a shape, it puts that shape on a new separate layer. If I were to use the brush tool, and let's say I wanted to paint on some mustard, or ketchup, sorry, I would be painting right on top of the bun. And if I ran into an issue and I wanted to erase, like let's say I go over and I make it really messy and I wanted to erase it, I would risk erasing the bun as well. Okay, so if you make a mistake, hold Control and press Z. And now if I wanted to make some ketchup on my bun, I'm actually going to create a separate new layer. So this button here, this is your new layer button, and we're going to select that. And I have red selected for my paintbrush, so I'm going to just paint on some ketchup. Looks good. All right, there's my condiment number 1. Now I want to add a patty. So I'm going to use that Ellipse Tool again. And we're going to draw another circle. Again, it doesn't matter where it is. Doesn't matter the size because we're going to change the size over here. So if we're making a patty, we want the patty just to be slightly smaller than the bun. So we're going to make this 5.5 inches wide and 5.5 inches tall. Press Enter. There it is. We can grab our Move tool, move it over. Okay, now of course we want to change this, the color of it. So we're going to go over to the Fill, and we're going to select a dark brown, almost like a reddish brown is what I'm going to go for. It's looking pretty red. I think I'm going to change that a little bit more. Okay. Now the one thing that's missing on this patty to make it look a little bit more realistic is some grill marks. So we want to use the Burn tool, which if you don't see it on your tool panel right away, it should be hidden underneath this tool, which is called the Dodge tool. So if you click and hold, you'll find your Burn tool. Okay, now my cursor right now is saying it does not want me to use the Burn tool on the patty, which is fine. If you just click once and then press OK, now we can use the Burn tool on our patty. So you can see how big the grill marks will be according to my cursor. If you wanted to change the size, you can go up here and make your size bigger or smaller. So now I can draw a line, and if I don't draw it very straight, it's going to look ridiculous, right? So I'm going to undo, Control Z. And a little trick is if you draw your line and hold Shift, it'll draw it perfectly straight for you. Oh, if you run into that issue, Control Z. Okay, so that looks pretty good. Now the next part is some cheese. So now we're going to use the Rectangle tool and draw a rectangle or a square on top of the patty. Okay, and again, we're going to change the color to make it more cheese looking. Some cheddar cheese. Okay, and now to make it look a little bit more realistic, let's throw some holes in there. So if we use our eraser tool, it's doing that thing where it doesn't want us to erase our cheese. So just click once on the cheese, press OK, and now we can use the eraser. So it looks pretty good when you can throw in a few different sized holes. So I'm going to make the holes bigger here. Okay, let's roll with that. Looks pretty good. Okay, now the next thing that we're going to do is add another condiment. So if I'm using the brush tool, remember that you want to add a new layer. So we're going to create a new layer, select the color that we want. This time I'll do mustard, and draw your mustard on. There we go. Now at this point I ask you to create a topping of your choice. So it could be anything. It could be lettuce, tomatoes, it could be another sauce, it could be another type of cheese. Maybe you want to add an additional patty. It's totally up to you. So I'm not going to demonstrate that part. I'm going to let you figure that part out. And then once that additional topping is on, the last thing to do for our burger is to create the top bun. So I'm going to grab that ellipse tool again, and we're going to create the top bun. Draw a circle, doesn't matter where, doesn't matter the size, and we will change it over here to be the same size as the bottom bun. So 6 inches by 6 inches, press enter. We can grab our move tool and move it to the center. And now we can go to the fill, add a gradient, click on the color bar to change our colors. We'll start with the black color. And we're going to choose a light brown here. And then for the white square, we're going to choose a dark brown. Now the one thing I didn't do was change the gradient from linear to radial. So I'm going to press OK here, and I'm going to make that change right now, linear to radial. And now I can see that this looks like a top bun. If I was looking at the top of a bun from a bird's eye view, it would probably be a little bit darker as it gets towards the outer edge. And then it should be a little bit lighter in the middle. Okay, so the next step is to add a plate. So let's go to the internet, go to Google Images, and search for a plate. Now when you're looking for a plate, something that's going to make this next step a little bit easier is if you select a plate that has some contrast to the background. That means it's a different color than the background. So this plate here, it's a pretty similar color to this background. So I might run into some issues if I use this picture. This blue plate really pops off the background, so this would be a good one to use. I'm going to use this plate. So when you choose your plate, you need to save your image. So you right click, press Save Image As, and save it to a location and title it something that makes sense to you. so that you know how to find your picture when you bring it into Photoshop. You can see that I already have this plate saved, so I don't need to save it one more time. So once your picture is saved, go back to Photoshop, and we want to embed that picture onto our page. So we're going to go File, Place Embedded, find the plate that you have saved. There it is. Let's press Enter on our keyboard. Okay, so now what we want to do is remove the plate from the background of its picture. So the tool that we're going to use for this is called the Quick Selection tool. Right now I can't see the tool on my tool panel, but I know it's hidden underneath this tool. If I were to click and start drawing on my plate, you can see that Photoshop kind of just knows exactly what you're trying to select. So my plate is already selected. Now if I were to press delete, I'm going to delete my plate. I want to delete everything but my plate. So at the top of your screen where it says select, these are your selection options. Right now I have a selection made, which is my plate. So I'm going to go to select, and I'm going to press inverse. What that does is it selects everything else except for your plate. Now I can delete. Now when you press delete, this little screen's going to pop up saying that nope, we can't do that, which is fine. What we need to do is go over to our plate layer, right click on your layer, and then press rasterize layer. This is going to allow you to make some changes to your layer. Once you have rasterized your layer, now you can press delete, and it deletes everything except for your plate. Okay, now you're not going to be able to do anything else until you get rid of these lines that are moving around your plate. So we go back to our selection options and then press deselect. Now the only issue is it's on top of our burger. So we want to drag the plate layer all the way down to the bottom so that the whole burger is on top of the plate. Now something that I don't love right now is that I can't really see the plate. The burger is almost bigger than the plate. You can only see a little bit of the plate. So I'm going to grab my move tool, make sure that these show transform controls are on, and that allows you to have access to these squares going around your plate. And we can change the size to make our plate a little bit bigger. Okay, now I can move it back to the middle and press enter to lock those changes in. Okay, so the last thing that we need to do is add some text at the top and at the bottom. So at the top, we're going to have a title for our burger, and at the bottom, we're going to have your name. So let's use the text tool. Click on your paper. It automatically fills it with text, so it says lorem ipsum. Right now, we don't want that, right? So we're going to change it to the title of our burger. I'm going to call this burger the Big Bad Beast Burger. And I will highlight all my text. I can change the font if I want. And I'm going to move it over a little bit because right now some of my text is off of my page. Okay, and of course my text is just way too long right now. So I could change the size of my font, or I could put some of these words on a separate line. So I'm going to grab my text tool and I'm going to put Beast Burger on its own line. I'm going to center my text now. Move it back over to the middle. Okay, that looks pretty good. Now we need our name at the bottom. So grab that text tool again. Click at the bottom. It says by Levi Sobering. This is really big though. So I think I'm going to just change the size of my font maybe down to 60 and see if that works a little bit better. Still think it's going to be too big. So 48 might do the trick. Move it over to the middle. Okay, so that looks good. Now, the one other thing that we can do to our text is if we want to make it look really fancy, we can double click on these two layers that says, for me, by Levi Sobering and Big Bad Beast Burger. And if I double click on a layer, it's going to open up a little window that has some more options. So all of this stuff on the left are things that you can add to your text to make it look interesting. So I'm going to add maybe a gradient, which means it fades from one color to another. I can modify my gradient. There's some preset gradients. Let's see what's in the blues folder. Let's choose this one. Okay, I can add a stroke, which is just a fancy word for an outline. Right now it's set to black. I can make it a little bit bigger. I could add a drop shadow. Change the angle. And you can add all these other things too if you want. I'm going to leave it at that, and I'm going to press OK. So feel free to do the same thing to your name. And then when that's all done, save your project by going File, Save As, title it something that makes sense to you, save it to a location that you'll be able to find easily, and then that's the end of the burger challenge.